tour the area with high school football coaches to get ready for the upcoming season, which we all hope is going to take place beginning in October. And tonight we stay on the east bank of Jefferson Parish in Kenner, where the Bonnabel Bruins are getting set for their season under their third-year head coach, who joins us now, Coach Brett Bonnaffons. Brett, listen, it's great to have you with us, and welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited.
Well, obviously, third year on the job, so listen, you've been in tough situations before at Pope John Paul, at Riverdale, so you knew the Bonnabel situation was a tough situation, but you were very well prepared for it, weren't you?
Yeah, you talked about the Riverdale and Pope John Paul jobs. When we got there, they had a little bit of bad luck, and so we were able to do some things there, and just taking those lessons and bringing them to Bonnabel. It's been an interesting run. Bonnabel was they haven't really had a successful season since 2012, so it was a little bit of a change that we had to do. But I think our coaching staff and our players have done a great job.
Looking back at last season, it was a very interesting season and a pretty solid one to go 5-5. You win 3 of your last 4 games to close the year on a really good run, which obviously has a chance to carry over. You got a big win over West Jefferson a year ago as well, and of course, I had your buddy Frank Alello on the other night, and I guess this whole 1-point thing is you wouldn't mind seeing that thing flip the other way after the last 2 years, right?
Well, no, I love Frank, and so I say this with all due respect. I'm tired of hearing about the blue school, man. They're killing me. I got to call them the blue school because that's our rival now. I don't want to say their name. Like I said, with all due respect, I love Frank. He's a great coach. But I have to say the blue school. No, it's been an amazing. I think last year's game, if I wasn't coaching in it, I would have watched it 15 times and enjoyed it was a fantastic football game. It just going back and forth the whole way, and just losing 1 point 2 years in a row, that hurts. And we have a couple Bonnabel alumni on our coaching staff that it really, really affects.
I completely understand, and I've been around long enough to remember when Bonnabel High School was created out of East Jefferson High School,
yep.
So knew that situation really well. Became an instant rivalry, has remained that way. I think it's a great thing for the parish and for the community at large.
I wish we could get back the events that surround it.
Yes.
That's my goal for the next couple of years, to get that rolling.
Listen, I share your sentiment. I thought it was great to see everything that took place. The alumni gatherings, the golf, everything that happened. And we talked about it, promoted it, wrote about it on our website for several years. And I get it. I understand some of the things that transpired, but it would be great to be able to see that happen again. Visiting with Brett Bonnaffons of Bonnabel. And Brett, last year I mentioned 5-5. You had a team that had some good football players. You signed like 3 kids who were all good players, including a young man that went to Service Academy who was leader of your team. Just talk a little bit about, what happened last year and the foundation that was built.
We had a bunch of kids who bought in to what our coaching staff was doing, and I mean, we were a very senior heavy team last year, very athletic. And we ended up having a couple more signed later in the year. We had Torrance, who signed with Navy, but he actually because of the ACT being canceled in the spring, he couldn't get that final little point. So he's on his way to Trinity Valley Community College tomorrow, and we're very excited about that. Trinity Valley is one of the best in the country. And then we had a running back signed with Langston University. We had a receiver signed with Louisiana College. We had a D tackle signed with Texas Wesleyan, and we had a defensive back signed with Arkansas Monticello. I mean, just to have that type of success for our senior class is amazing. We had a receiver who was offered by other schools, but ended up signing with a junior college for basketball. So I mean, that's just just to see that success for them is amazing, and to see us to jump to 5 wins. I mean, that's a big deal. That's the most wins tied since 2011, 2012. The most wins Bonnabel's had since 1998.
And that leads us, of course, to the 2020 season. Just tell us a little bit about what you're looking at this year. What kind of team you feel like you have, and and the structure of this team that you're putting together.
The good thing is we had, like I said, we had a very athletic team last year. But when it comes to pure athleticism, I'm fairly sure we're better this year than we were last year. But we lose a tremendous amount of experience. anytime you graduate a kid who's thrown for who has 5,000 to 6,000 total yards in his career, you're losing. That's one of the top two players. To me, one of the top two quarterbacks in Bonnabel history. I'll never discount anything Mr. Wilcox does, but to me, Torrance is one of the top two quarterbacks in Bonnabel history. So you lose him, you lose a 1,000-yard rusher in DeWine Nicholas, you're going to have issues. But we returned 4 out of 5 starters on the offensive line, and the only new one actually started 2 games for us last year, once against the Blue School and once against Riverdale. And so he played in some big games. So we got 4 out of 5 coming back, and then we have a kid who didn't play for us last year, but he played basketball. A guy named John Powell, or Nestor Perez. They're going to be one of them is going to be our starting quarterback. Both are extremely athletic. They both run in about a 4.5, 4.6 range. They're strong kids. It's just all about how can we develop them as passers. Because we have a decent receiving core coming back. We have a young man named Jaquel Rhodes who's really good. A young man that's transferring over from Assumption High School named Dorian Bailey, who last year for Assumption had 200 yards receiving. And he has a chance to be phenomenal. And then we have 3 or 4 guys vying for those outside receiver spots. But they all have different attributes. One is 6'3" and can run, but never played football before. We have 2 or 3 that played for us last year that are trying to develop into that every down guy. So offensively, I think we're going to be surprising this year. It's going to take a little while. We're going to be able to run the ball now. That offensive line is I think is going to be phenomenal for us. But I think the strength of our team is going to be our defense. I have no doubts about that.
Visiting with Bonnaffons of Bonnabel High School. What about that defense? Talk about a few of the players that you feel like significant.
We were blessed this year to have a couple kids kind of transfer over from other schools, and they're going to walk right in and play immediate dividends for us. We have a young man, that defensive tackle, transferred from Rummel, Ramad Jackson, who's about a 6 foot, 280-pound D tackle. He's a college prospect. He's a senior. We're very, very light on seniors this year. We might only have about 6 starters that are seniors, but we're very, very junior heavy. My junior class is going to be real good. And one of those kids, another one that transferred in, came from St. Charles Catholic. His name is Danik Reed. He's a 6'1", 180-pound free safety who I think is he's going to have a chance to play 2 sports in college because he's dynamite for a baseball team as well. And then we have returning for us a guy named Josh Barton, who started for us as a sophomore. He put on about 30 pounds in the off season. He's 6'3", 6'4", 250 pounds, and he had a chance. Like I said this last year, I'll repeat it. He has a chance to be one of the best players in Bonnabel history. Anytime you're that big, that strong, that fast, and that explosive, you have a chance to be phenomenal. And his dad's actually one of our linebackers coaches, a former Bonnabel player. But it's all about how can we translate this athleticism into experience, and that's hard when you lose out on spring, and we weren't allowed to touch a football at all until August 3rd. So it's been a little difficult.
How hard has that been, Coach? How difficult is this entire pandemic situation been?
It's been really hard just because of the lack of the experience. You have all new receivers, 2 new quarterbacks, and you can't get timing down. You have, you can't even do mesh exchange. We have 2 young running backs who I think both can be really good, but if you can't do handoff mesh exchanges with them with the quarterbacks, you can't work reads. We actually have a program that I got from the Army. It's like a video game program, but you can sit in the head of the quarterback and read. That's the only way my quarterbacks were able to see defenses is by doing that. It's called a Go Army Edge app, and that's something we got a couple years ago, and it works really well. But it's all about timing, and when you're an inexperienced team, it's almost impossible to progress without that repetition.
I would imagine that would be the case. Talk about the schedule, Coach. I know right now you're not totally sure because you're not sure if it's 8 games, 7 games, or 6 games. First and foremost, what would you prefer? Would you prefer the 8-game regular season and maybe a reduced field in the playoffs, or would you prefer to have the full field in the playoffs and play 6 or 7 regular season games?
Personally, I would rather find a way to play 10 because I really wanted to play Destrehan and Newton. I want to play the best teams in the state, and that's kind of to lose those two games really kind of hurts me. But if we're working with what the options are, I'm always going to say play with the full playoff field. I think you have. I mean, you can look at the playoff field last year, and there were probably 6 or 7 teams that made it into the second or third round who were 24-25 and pulled the upset in round 1. I could think of a couple. I mean, I know this is kind of a different situation, but I could think of a couple of years ago when Acadiana had to forfeit games, and was ended up being a 20-something seed and made it to the state championship game. And so I always say a full round of the playoffs because that's where the magic is. People don't like to see in the March Madness, the NCAA tournament, they don't like to see 7 and 9 matchups. They want to see the 15 matchup beat the 2 seed. And I think that can happen a lot in high school playoffs, especially in Louisiana with the way the split is. You can have that happen. It's a great thing to see.
And then, of course, when you're talking about your district, it is an interesting league. It's about John Ehret. It's about Chalmette's a good team. And last year, I guess EJ was third. But the bottom line is Ehret's a team to beat. They always are. Chalmette's a good team, but certainly hadn't been a great team. So what about this league? Is this a chance? Is this a year where a team like Bonnabel could break through?
Yeah, I thought we had a pretty good shot last year to surprise some people, and we ended up going 4-3 in our district, which was a big deal for us. But 1 point away from being 5-2. We played Chalmette, and it was 28-28 with 6 minutes left in the game. I mean, we had a chance last year. I think this year, John Ehret's still going to be loaded. I know that staff really well. Reggie Rogers is a very good friend of mine. They're going to be loaded. Perry Nickerson, a kid I coached at West Jeff. His little brother is going to be a starting quarterback, and he's a talented young kid. Kane Williams, Andrew, the linebacker is really good. I coached him when I was at Ehret for a little bit. So they are definitely the class of the league. With Chalmette, they're always going to be athletic. They're always going to be very well coached. Jason does a good job with them. I know they were a very senior heavy team last year. So I think depending on how the season goes, that might be a team that we could sneak up on. But they have a very good, like I said, their coaching staff is really good. I mean, you don't stay at a school as long as they have and have the success that they've had over the past 3 years unless you can build a team. I mean, a couple of years ago, last year Landry Walker was in our league. They almost surprised them. I want to say it was 40-38. It was something close like that, and they almost beat Ehret last year. So they have a chance every year to be a good team, and they run a very, very unique offense that nobody really ever sees anymore. So it's hard to prepare for it. When you're talking about other teams, you have so much turnover in Jefferson Parish. I think if you look at just the Jefferson Parish teams, I think myself and Frank Alello are the 2 longest tenured coaches at the same school in Jefferson Parish. And that says a lot, seeing that I've only been there for 3 years. But, I mean, Willie Brooks is an amazing coach. He won at Helen Cox. He had success at Riverdale. So he's always – I think he's going to have West Jeff fairly prepared. Richard Walker Kyle Walker, at Riverdale. I mean, he coordinated an offense last year that scored 40 points a game. And not many coaches have done that. I don't know a lot about Coach Levine at Higgins, but I know I played, ball at Nichols with Brian Holmes, the defensive coordinator, and he had a lot of success when he was at Grace King, being 4-6 at Grace King. He did some good things there, and so he's going to have the defense ready. I know that whole program is getting better. Our district is improving, but I think we have a chance to surprise a lot of people and win some games this year. I really do. I'm very excited about it.
Last but not least, how important is it to play this season from your perspective and from the perspective of your players?
I read a lot, and I read a statistic in a medical journal in May that said that on a normal basis, 17 to 25% of high school students experience depressive symptoms. And then it said as of May, that number jumped to from 17 to 25% to 68% because of everything that's going on. And just at a school like Bonnabel, where you have kids that come from every walk of life, I think as close as you can get to normalcy for them is going to be the most important thing. So if we can get our kids onto the field and showing them that the world is not as bad as everybody thinks it is. It's not. It's normal, I guess is a good way to put it. The world is getting back to some type of normal. The kids can become more comfortable. Like I said, our kids are. I didn't really know about Bonnabel when I got here, but I'm learning a lot of the economic status of what our kids have to deal with, and they have to deal with a lot already. So to tell them that now, even though you have to deal with a lot, you have no chance to go to college because you're not playing as a senior. That's a lot. And so I'm hoping that we can play, just because you have a lot of kids from Jefferson Parish and Orleans Parish who need this to go to the next level, who need this for self-esteem, who need this to learn how to be a team player. And I think that's my whole goal is how can this help our kids? Because as grown men, as coaches, we're going to be all right. There's always going to be another team. There's always going to be the next team. But when you look at our seniors, they need this. We had 3 kids signed last year just off what they did their senior year. And so I can't imagine what those kids would have to do if they don't have a senior year. I'm sorry I'm long-winded. That's
okay.
a huge deal for me. It's
Absolutely.
a huge deal for me.
And a lot of people, for that matter, as well. Bonnabel Bruins. Brett Bonnaffons, thanks so much for the time tonight. Let's hope we're all talking about a football game here in about a month's time or so. Right?
Yes, sir. I pray for it every night.
You got it, Brett. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Brett, you got it. Brett Bonnaffons, Bonnabel High School.